Welcome everyone to day 3 of LTUX 2021. Very exciting. Today we're talking all about esports. I'm going to be hosting this panel today with esports professionals all around the country, as well as in Michigan. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I am Joel Graves. I am a student at Lawrence Technological University, as well as the assistant esports manager at State Champs Esports, as well as Cup president and of LTU Esports and a lot of the other student organizations around campus. I'm joined here by 4 of the panelists. I'm very excited to have them, and I'm going to start introductions with Danielle.
Oh, so hi, I'm Danielle Sarikis. I'm the head coach of esports at LTU. I've been involved with video games since I was a young girl. My all-time favorite game is Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, and I grew up playing with my family and friends anywhere from 1080p snowboarding. Well, it's not 1080p, sorry, 1080 snowboarding, Twisted Metal, Halo, and Unreal Tournament. So I'm really big into health and fitness, and it's important that I incorporate it into my life. And that's kind of my motto that I'm going to involve in the program. So even if it's just a brisk walk, it still counts. I'm currently training for a Tough Mudder in June and a half marathon in the fall. I used to coach swimming and love to help mentor people, and I still have a passion for coaching. So I didn't really know how to incorporate it into my everyday life. But then I heard about LTU and looking for an esports coach, and I thought, well, why not apply? And why wouldn't I want to, marry two passions and bring them together? So here we are, and now I'm the head coach. But LTU will be competing in our first varsity season in fall 2021, and we're recruiting for League of Legends, Overwatch, Rocket League, Smash, Valorant, Siege, and CS:GO, and potentially looking to add more titles in the far off future.
Yep, so next up is Dylan.
Hi, I'm Dylan Chapman. I'm a high school teacher at Grass Lake in Jackson County, Michigan. I'm the co-founder of Michigan High School Esports Federation, which is a nonprofit, a school-run organization that we formed years ago. It's focused on student outcomes, and that's our number one priority is the student experience. We have about 60 schools throughout the state of Michigan, including up in the UP. We have about 1,500 student players this season, and then that doesn't include students that are kind of like in their off season or schools that are just testing the waters for next year. This is the end of our second year as an organization, and if we're going with our favorite games, my favorite game to play when I was growing up was Earthbound. I don't know if you guys know that one, but it's a classic. And then the game I played most now is probably League of Legends, or It Plays Me, one or the other.
Yep, and next is going to be Eric.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Bao. I am the founder of GG Leagues, and we are the premier platform that enables recreational players and organizations of all backgrounds to be able to participate in esports. Our platform simplifies that process for these organizers, and we work with over 250 cities across the United States, as well as over 110 different universities across the United States as well, to empower them to participate in esports competitions. As far as my favorite games go, I am a big fan of Dota 2, Halo, StarCraft. So a lot of those games that really test you and challenge you. Recently been playing a lot of Apex Legends as well.
Yep, last but not least, Steven.
Hi, so I'm Steven Yunshai. I'm currently the head coach at Detroit Catholic Central High School, which is a member school of MySEF, which Dylan kind of helped start. So we've been super excited playing in it. It's our first year. We have one season under our belt, and everything went pretty well. We got second place in Rocket League there, and hopefully we'll be able to take first place home for this duo league that's running up here next week for playoffs. So a little bit before Catholic Central, I owned and operated a semi-professional team with around 60 players. It was called the V8 Esports, and that was kind of what got me in to the esports scene and helped me kind of come back here at TC and start something up in the high school league. and I've had a really fun time. The school's been super supportive. As you guys could see in the background, we're actually playing in State Champs League of Legends tournament right now. So if you see anyone moving around or playing, that's what's going on. And if we're talking about favorite games, I'm gonna have to go with Rocket League's my favorite. I played travel soccer for Wolves and Jags for about 16 years, and I currently play for Detroit United as a goalie. So I keep busy with soccer and esports.
Yep. Thank you guys again for coming out, and very interesting to see some of your different views and topics on the questions we have today. And for our first question, a bit of a controversial topic, I think, especially this is going to be a bit of an educational topic, but students first versus the player first mentality. I think Dylan said it a little bit when he was introducing himself that myself is student first, but I think there are also some different views on that. But when talking about the mentality in high school and college esports, it's always usually student first versus player first. A lot of the universities that at least I've seen are student first organizations. So you're a scholar first. That's their first goal for you to be. But how do you think this affects participation, within the leagues you guys participate in, or the organizations you guys has? I'm gonna pass this over to Danielle.
All right. So, you're right, Joel. I think the main thing to remember when you're like starting to participate in college esports teams is that you are still in college and that's your main goal, is to acquire a degree that you set out to get. And it's to have a great experience while you're at the university. Academics are really important for us at LTU, and I'm like Joel kind of segued to that. It very much is similar to a lot of the universities and some of my colleagues that have spoken to. Um, if the student isn't successful, then we aren't going to be successful as a program. The goal is to mold young minds so that they can utilize their skills that they learned while they're here, and then carry it on to their careers in adulthood. Even if they don't decide to go into esports when they graduate, um, I really want them to be able to take something away, whether it be, communication skills or public speaking, as we were kind of talking before. Um, we have things in place to help student athletes achieve success and maintain a balance in their lives while they're on the team. If a student's grades start to suffer, so much so that they drop below the requirement, then unfortunately they can't compete, but it's time to regroup and refocus so they can. I think it's important to set the standard from the very, very beginning when I'm talking to each student and saying, you know, this is what you're here to achieve. You're here to achieve this academic goal first, and then what are your goals next while you're on the team, and what would you like to accomplish when you're attending LTU?
Yep. So, what are your thoughts, Dylan? You have this organization across all of Michigan with multiple schools. Is it the same? You did say it, but what are the perspective as a organizer of organizing different high school administrators around Michigan?
So, so first, in our name, we're a federation, and we act as a federation. We act as a unit in some regards, and then we also act as independent school districts able to do what we want. We have some suggested guidelines and a handbook. We coach coaches on what expectations should be with their programs, but we know that situations are different in different environments. One thing that we suggest is like if you compare or mirror your traditional sports requirements, qualifications for academics, that makes accountability, stronger when it comes to students being students and then being involved in their extracurriculars as a reward for being good students. But I know that in some places, esports could be the only thing that's bringing a student to school. So to cut them from the one thing that's a positive in their school experience, because of grades, it might not be a blanket call across all districts to do the exact same model. So with that, we allow a little bit of freedom of management when it comes to how they're managing their player student kind of like balance. But definitely, from my perspective at my school, I run my own program there as well. The students have to be students first, and then be players secondarily, but we're into the competitive side of esports. We're not there to just show up. We want to play. We want to win. We practice. We talk strategies and things like that. But if it starts to seep into the classroom, because I'm a classroom teacher too, we're going to nix that. We have advisor meetings where we emphasize the student player dynamic, and we work to incorporate to beyond the game challenges. So we're influencing and trying to encourage schools to step up their streaming game, to work on their social media presence, to do all of the things that, like Danielle said, the skills that are associated with esports, but also have different outlets in the professional world.
Yep. So next up is Eric. So Eric, you are the founder and co-founder and CEO of GG Leagues. So you said you have different organizational, recreational, and universities, participate within your leagues. Do you still see that come across as the organizer of tournament play?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with what's been brought up so far by Daniel and Dylan. Even as a tournament organizer, right, we have obviously slightly different dynamics between us and players, right? We're not the coaches, we're not the ones leading those teams, but still for us, we think it should be student first. And it's something that we keep in mind as we form all of our competitions, right? It starts with how we structure them, the rules that we go into, right? We always try to make sure the games are in the evening so they don't conflict with class times that people would have. We try and give flexible reschedule options. So, if conflicts do come up, that teams are able to work around that. Right, we do our best to avoid finals weeks, as requested by a lot of our players, right? Because that's priority one. But it's something that with all these different schools participating, it can get a little tricky, but we do our best there. From there, it doesn't stop with just how we structure it, right? Even when it comes to thinking about pricing, the way we do that is trying to enable students to receive scholarships for good performance for play in the leagues, which allows them to, better able to achieve their educational goals. And on top of that, we even have a, kind of an internship program that we do with a lot of the schools as well, where we offer, real work experience for students in the world of esports, right? While that may not be specifically student focused, right? That is, focused on the career, focused on them beyond just playing the game, right? Because we think, as much as all of us here love esports, right? It's something that opens avenues for people to participate in other activities. And so, we always try and focus on that as a league.
Yep. And again, last but not least, what are your thoughts on this mentality of student versus player first, Stephen?
Sure. So I think I'll probably have a unique perspective because I'm still in school. So I'm at the University of Michigan Dearborn. So I've got high expectations for myself, but also for the students. Because as a student, I know I have to get my things done too. So I'm able to coach, able to attend practices. So it's kind of almost like a push and pull thing where I'm doing my stuff, and I'm expecting my students to do the same to get their work done. We kind of have a saying at our school, which is do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do. So it's kind of how we run it for everything. Obviously, they're student athletes, and they're treated just like any other sports program at Catholic Central. So it's really no different. But I definitely can see the point where you have to get your stuff done in the classroom first, because that's not only just going to help you to learn new things, but it's going to help you grow as a person, and you learn valuable life skills in the classroom that can take you on to career or to other things. And same thing with esports, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like more of a privilege to be on the team than necessarily a right, and you kind of have to earn that by working hard in the classroom.
Yep. So I was talking to Danielle, I think a week or a week and a half ago about this topic because it always seems like when you think about it, it's always organizations should always be student first because you want to further the goals of the student. after college or whatever the current level of your education is. But she did bring up some good points about, some organizations have, the player first. And if you could talk a little bit about that, Danielle, as I know you've done multiple interviews and heard different point of views.
Yeah. I think it also depends on the development of the program. So there are some universities that they're very much want to win, win, win. I think of it as similar to like D1 traditional sports. They're very much that's their bread and butter. I think, but it's still a balance because a lot of these organizations use like we are under NACE, and that's kind of like it's not a governing body, but it's more of a association, and their requirements are no different than NCAA or NAIA, which is you have to maintain a 2.0. Um, and I mean, most of us have been to college classes or have graduated college classes that that 2.0 is not as difficult to maintain. So um, they they really focus on talent. And I mean, it's hard because people are dedicating so much time into becoming perfecting their craft that if you're spending all this time playing League of Legends or Rocket League or whatever game and focusing on that, then something's going to give. And sometimes sometimes unfortunately it is your studies. But, there are the phenoms that are able to do it all. I personally had to work while I was going to college, so I couldn't really focus on everything all at once. So,
Yep. So a little bit of the last thing on this, and then we're going to move on to the last question. So, Dylan, what do you think about that? As the organizer and vice president of MySEF, um, when you have students who are performing well within their given esport, um, what do you do if they're approached by kind of like a traditional sports, approached by someone who wants them to go professional versus the idea of them going to college and then becoming a professional?
Okay, sure. It's like what happens when the world moves on beyond your game. Esports, um, it's a fast-moving world, and what's popular today might not be popular tomorrow. So what happens when the game that you're the master of is no longer popular? There's no longer competitions for it. You have to diversify your skills to be able to move with where the wind is blowing, I guess. So we try to emphasize that like there is this world of the competition, but also there's this secondary, tertiary, there's this like ripple effect of all these industries were associated with these sports. It's kind of like if you were really into the game and you really want to get into the professional scene, most players don't go pro, but they may be an athletic trainer, or they may be a production specialist, or they may be in hospitality and event planning or something like that. So we just try to open up students' eyes that the game is one part of it, but it's kind of like in the NASCAR world, there's one driver, but there's like an army of people behind them. So you know, pick pick something that's got longevity, that's got versatility, and that you can transfer those skills into other places in your life and career. That's what our perspective is from the school level. As far as just like creating a super team or something like that, there's a place for that, but that's the fun side of things and not so much the practical side of things.
Yep. So the next topic is, school versus organization. Going to change up a little bit of the response here. It's going to go for Eric first. But Eric, as the co-founder and owner of GG Leagues, an organization that creates leagues across the country. You said you have hundreds of different organizations, recreational or university, participating in your leagues around the country. How do you keep schools interested from season to season? And also, what are your strategies you look for when approaching to get, new organizations involved in GG leagues?
Yeah, I think that's there's many different levels as on getting people interested in your league and staying interested in your league, right? The easiest answer is that you've got to do a good job, right? Like, people are there's so much interest in esports. There are so many options for people to participate in, and there's all sorts of new new leagues, there's new organizations, there's new incentives that everybody's coming up with. But I think at the end of the day, what it's going to shake down to is who is doing a good job of running those leagues, right? Who is having a good admin team that is responsive, who is enforcing rules, who's basically running a league that feels like it's put on professionally and has structure and isn't, an amateur run one that's going to fall apart, the first hint of trouble. Right. And so I think when it boils down to it, that's really what we strive for as an organization, is to always try and put ourselves in the shoes of the teams playing in our league and say, all right, what would they want? What can we do to make their experience better? That's something that we always do at the end of our seasons, is ask all of our teams and our players, right? Like, what are things that went well this year? What are things that you can improve? Right? There's no better way to learn about what is going to keep someone interested in your league and help, than to have them help you build that themselves, right? Getting that input, getting that feedback is so valuable. And I think at the end of the day, that's really all it comes down to, right? We do some things to try and get people excited about the leagues, right? Something that we've done is that scholarship pool, right? Really being able to give back to that community, incentivize people on that. Having a pretty cool trophy is something that is really sweet as well. We used to do LAN finals for our events, which was very unique, and something that we loved seeing everybody out in the community being able to participate in something like that. Um, and so, there's things like that. But at the end of the day, it always comes down to, are you doing a good job? Are people happy with, the league and the professionalism that you're showing as a league? And so, that's kind of the main thing that we do to keep schools interested in playing in the league season after season.
Yep. So going over to Steven, what do you look for, as the coach of a high school team, as you've also seen different tournaments, different leagues. What do you look for when looking for a organization or a league or a tournament to participate in? Like what makes it worth it to say, hey, I want my school to participate in this, and like what are the reasons behind that?
Sure. So like kind of how you mentioned before, I've been a part of other tournaments that are $1,000 prize pools or $100,000 prize pool or whatever. But I don't think that's necessarily the goal right now of high school esports. I think one thing that our school kind of mentioned in doing this is we want to be able to play against other schools in Michigan, some of our rivals. We want to be able to play against Northville. We want to be able to play against Novi. We want to see teams that don't have teams create teams so that way they could play us. And that's one thing that I have to give credit to state champs for doing, and also to myself for doing, is that we play mainly Michigan competition, which is just it's a huge plus. The kids are a little bit more just regionally bound, and it kind of makes things a little bit more interesting. There's that kind of that competition, that rivalry between some of the schools, where it's you want to be the best, in your state, similar to how other traditional sports kind of run it. So obviously, like when you see some of the tournaments that have larger prize pools and stuff. Obviously, I always kind of look through them and kind of see if they're right for us. But really, the main thing is not necessarily so much the money you could win from it. More so is the experience and actually kind of building up that grassroots high school program.
Yep. So Dylan, you're kind of like in between a little bit. You are, the overall organization, not the overall, but you are an organization within Michigan that runs its own tournaments, as well as I think you guys do play versus. So what do you guys do to, make sure? I guess it's kind of the same question as I asked Eric. How do you get new schools? Because I know you guys don't have every high school, right? But how do you get new schools to, join in? Because you're an organization run by high school coaches. How do you get new schools to participate in what you guys do, as well as keep schools interested? And then kind of the second half of this question is, as a coach of Grass Lake, and a teacher there, what do you look for when you're looking for tournaments for your students to participate in?
Okay. So we don't do play versus, but we at our school we just do MySef, and then we do the LTU tournaments, and some like schools will offer invitationals. There are restrictions that the publishers have when it comes to playing games in some regards. So like the only way to play them is like sort of like as exhibitions or like one-time weekend events. Um, okay, so this is a pretty big topic, especially for us. And like you said, we are sort of in between, like we are tournament organizers, but at the same time, we're tournament participants. So, of course, I'm going to say that MySEF is a good league to join because I know it so well because we've developed it, but we just try to, and I know it's a corny and like cliche thing to say, but we try to under promise and over deliver. We're not trying to sell something that we're not. We're just going to give people what we know we can produce. And if we can't do it, we're going to be upfront with it. And, we're human and we're the people who are on the ground. We're the coaches, we're the staff members, we're the IT directors, we're the volunteers that are making esports happen for high school students. So that comes from a world of trust and kind of like peer-to-peer mentoring. Word of mouth is what really helps us to grow as a league. We go to different academic conferences and like McCall or the Wired TC conference up in Traverse City, or different educational technology um, like vendor events, and talk about what MySEF is and how it can be incorporated and grow like STEM opportunities and STEAM opportunities for students. I think at Michigan High School Esports Federation, we just encourage schools to participate at whatever level that they're at. Like we don't restrain or exclude schools from participating in other leagues. We know that schools are at different levels of development within their program. So like teams may only be able to participate in one title that MySEF offers, and they're just testing the waters and seeing how it goes for one season. And then next season they'll join up and play all the titles. Or some schools are involved in groups like NASEF, which is a pretty good organization that's national. And they can play that. And at the same time, they're playing in MySEF, and then they're also playing in one-off tournaments through like BattleFi, and then they're doing other things, but they've got the staff and they've got the experience to do those sorts of things. All that we ask from our member schools is that they fully participate in what their obligations are within our program. So they have to communicate, they have to show up, they have to play, they have to exhibit good sportsmanship. And what we do at MySEF is we try to provide organized and predictable competition between Michigan schools. So this is our second year running, and it was kind of a far off goal that eventually we'd have interstate play. This year we were already having like the battle of the border, where we were pitting our champions and our certain titles against the champions of Ohio esports. And we're in talks with many other states and their state school run organizations. And I can only see that becoming a more organized and more visible kind of opportunity for students to play at an interstate level. It just kind of fell into our laps, and it turned out it was actually very easy to do. We're trying to create a community within Michigan first and foremost, because we want these students to develop relationships and work together, maybe go to college together, develop that next app that solves problems, and avoid a brain drain in Michigan, because these students are interested in STEM related fields, and we want to build that community as much as we want to build the competitive video game community. We develop relationships with college programs, coaches, and directors, so that way we can create a very like strong and clear pipeline of talent from high school to college level. We have personal relationships, and we can tout those personal relationships to say, we can put you in contact with the right people. We can put the right community events in front of you where your students will be noticed, and it's a trustworthy thing. In short, what we're doing it because we want to give students every possibility for growth as individuals, as well as to develop a community network within the state and college and career opportunities. We're not here to make money, but we are reliant on the generosity of our advisors, coaches, board members, their dedication, their time, their effort, sponsors. If you're listening, we're taking sponsorships, we're taking donations, but we're just trying to keep high school esports moving forward in Michigan. That's kind of like our mission statement, is to grow the esports community within Michigan. And then all the fringe benefits just kind of fall in place. The after school, hands-on, familiar feel, but also new, is what helps to keep us growing, and it separates us from other groups, because it's like it's not some thing that you're trying to convince people like, let's see what this is all about. These are real people who you could talk to, and you can get in touch with through our like contact us or our website or whatever. You can talk to a real person from your local area who's had experience. So that word of mouth goes a long way. What we're seeing as far as like from the for-profit high school leagues, like you had mentioned Play Versus, what they're offering schools is like kind of like a turnkey operation and participating in esports, which sounds very easy. And that's why like secondary principal groups have created these deals with groups like Play Versus. But through no fault of their own, those administrators just don't really know what it takes to run esports on the ground level. And while it sounds good, it actually takes a lot of legwork from your own employees. So long story short, they're just kind of an unnecessary, like, in my opinion, I think they're kind of an unnecessary barrier, especially when you're paying. They're trying to make money off of students in schools rather than focus on like what are the opportunities for schools. There are groups that can be pay to play, but they do it right. And there's also pay to play, and they're just dropping the ball and not delivering on their product. So I think if I could say anything, it's that reputation speaks for itself, and intentions become clear and more clear as time goes on.
Thanks, Dylan. And then last but not least, Danielle, as the head coach of esports at Lawrence Tech, I know we're a part of NACE, and we're gonna start getting that going in the fall. But NACE doesn't offer everything. There are League of Legends who they league at the college level. They like to run their own tournaments through their, I think it's RSAA. But what do you look for as a college coach for what leagues you want your teams and different games to participate in? So yeah, what is it overall you look for?
So, it's actually similar to kind of like what Eric said. I really want great communication and support for the league. Any leagues. I may have questions that I need answered pretty quickly, and I need someone that is able to answer them. I actually am cursed with life where weird things happen to me and nobody else, and then I usually stump everybody. I'm not joking. It has happened to me pretty much my whole life. So I really need somebody that I can a point person to communicate and a decent response time. Where I can say that pretty much all of us in esports and college or high school or any spot are wearing multiple hats. So it's important to try to be as prompt as you can, and even if you aren't, to be understanding. The other thing is I'm also looking for similar rank competitors for my team. The main thing is you don't want to be beat so badly that it takes away the wind out of your sails, and also you don't want to win so greatly that you're not having competition because you're never going to get better that way. So the main thing is balanced competition. And I will say a little bit of side note off of what Dylan said. Uh, a lot of networking has happened for me, and Michigan is doing really well with creating a league for esports, and a lot of other coaches from other states are very um, not necessarily jealous, but hoping that it happens in their states. And so Michigan's really making headway when it comes to that, and I think we're doing really well with networking and learning who other people are and communicating with one another. And I think the landscape will look a lot different in a couple of years, where you'll have, the NCAA and the NAIA quite possibly creating their own leagues, and you'll still have those other leagues because it's can't really mimic traditional sports in the sense, but I think it'll be a different world in a few years.
Yep. So a little bit to build off of what you said, students really don't want to. It's kind of like Goldilocks. You don't want to face a team that's incredibly hard, just completely beats you because in my experience, you really don't learn anything from that. And
Right.
then you also don't want to have a team where you face them and it's just like it's completely easy for you. And I think that's something that participating in GG leagues. I think it's been 2 years now. The different divisions is great, and I know. With our league tournament we had, I think last year, and especially the year before that with state champs, it's great to see teams within different divisions at different skill levels participate and face each other, and I think it shows real growth for the players themselves, and I really do enjoy and like that. So moving on to the next topic, which is a little bit more of a current topic in the society we have today, is COVID-19 and how it's impacted esports, schools, and overall education. So it's been a rough year for everyone around the world, and it's infected. Excuse me. COVID has affected countless industries. A lot of people think that esports is online. It shouldn't affect you guys. You guys can just move completely virtual. But a conversation that Dylan and I were having before is just, COVID has kind of forced some things to happen. It's been beneficial, but it's different to think about it because uh, esports is not COVID proof by no means. I think it's definitely we've definitely seen that over the last year. Um, but starting off with Eric, how has COVID affected your organization? I know that last year we were planning to do an in-person event at LTU, but unfortunately, COVID stopped that. So, what is some things that you guys have experienced and done over the last year to counteract this problem?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, right? Is your example of that LTU LAN finals being canceled. Danielle and Dylan have both mentioned a lot about kind of esports being social, bringing people together. And I think, the background in Steven's video just kind of proves that, right? People coming together. And that's one of the big misconceptions about esports is that it's something that is not that social activity, right? But I think in the past year, what we've really seen is that's where it's affected esports the most, right? LAN events are a ton of fun, a great way to meet people, bring people from across multiple communities together. And, as much as, we all love doing esports online, right? Like it's just harder to recreate a lot of that experience, solely online as well. Right. And so I would say that's something that in our collegiate leagues has, very much been impacted. Um, a lot more things have been impacted logistically for teams participating in our leagues, right? Having restrictions on how many people can be in their facilities, what times classes are, right? And so, there's a lot of things like that that have been affected. And so, esports is certainly not immune to this, right? But I do want to highlight some of the pieces that I think esports has benefited from this as well, right? Because I think there's been some silver linings for that. One of the big ones that we've seen is that school programs, cities, right, recreation agencies at cities, really during COVID have recognized what all of us know, which is that esports is here and it's not going anywhere, right? And so they finally have come around to this idea, and it's a little funny that it's taken a global pandemic to make them recognize that, hey, this is probably something that we should invest in, right? But I think for the long term, that might be some of the benefits that we see out of this, right? LTU now has an official varsity program, right? Which is super exciting. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And so
Joel.
I'm not saying that COVID was a reason for that. I've seen the hard work, that Joel's been putting into building up the esports community at LTU, right? But maybe that's something that sped it up, right? Made that happen this year rather than a few years down the line. And that's what we've seen with a lot of our cities as well, right? Cities are notorious for moving very slowly, right? And so, to have 250 cities across the US now that are running their own recreational esports competitions in their communities, right? That's really exciting to us. And so that's some of the positive that's come out of it as well. And so, I think everybody is trying to make the best of a bad situation, right? It certainly has impacted esports in negative ways. But, for us, we try to look at some of the positives that have come out of it as well.
Yep. So next, directing this to Steven, at the high school level, really, like I said, COVID has affected people, different industries, different level of sports, esports, high school, amateur, pro, recreational, all across the different levels. How has it affected Detroit Catholic Central? What did that change really? I know you guys just got your new esports lab over there, which we should be visiting sometime in the future. But what did you have to change up, and how did that affect your players, your students, and so forth?
Absolutely. And again, we kind of experienced it right up front because the idea for esports at CC started in January of actually might have been December of 2019, January of 2020. So it was a few months before the shutdown even happened in March. And actually, it was funny because our first tryouts were scheduled for the Monday after the shutdown happened on March 13th. So I was in the library. I set up all our computers. Everything was ready. And we got that initial shutdown. And it was kind of tough because I remember actually there was going to be a League of Legends tournament from state champs that we were going to do. And we had to drop out of it because of COVID. And also a few weeks later, I remember myself, kind of stepping down from it because of COVID, and it was a challenge. But one thing that I kind of have to agree with Eric on is the social aspect. Is like the kids love being here. I love being here. When we were able to get back in the building this year and start to finally move out of our library, move into a room, you just see the changes on everyone's face. I mean, kids are they feel important to the school. They feel like there's a social aspect where that's kind of your home is like after school we're gonna go to the esports lab or the esports room and kind of have our place where we can compete and kind of be ourselves. Whereas kind of beforehand, when we were playing online or even still playing in the library, it was kind of a little bit of a different atmosphere because you just had to kind of contain yourself a little bit. And it was great. So whether we were online, whether we were in school, it it's definitely been a challenge. One thing that kind of we put forward was just the willingness to pivot. I think everyone's kind of seen that now is like, nothing's secure. You just kind of have to go with the flow. So whatever was thrown at us, we just try to make the most of it. And I'm super proud of the boys and what they've been able to do. A lot of it's been up to them and their willingness to kind of buy into the program. I went to school here a couple of years ago, and if you would have told me that there would be 50 or 60 kids interested in joining an esports program, I would have laughed and said it's not happening here. As you guys know, we're a pretty heavily uh, athletic school, so it's been great to see. And another point about Eric mentioned it again, but one of the benefits too has been I've seen and been reached out to a lot of trying to get recreational esports going in Michigan. So past the high school scene, maybe for youth or for things like that, it's been really cool to see that cities and states as wholes are kind of looking at it as a place where like, okay, if this ever happens again, how can we stay interacting with our communities? And hopefully it never happens again, knock on wood.
Yep. So then passing us over to Danielle, I know you just well, I guess it's not really recent anymore, but you weren't quite when, COVID actually happened. So I guess this is going to be a little bit of a different question, kind of looking into the future, but we're still within the pandemic. It's definitely not over. Hopefully it starts to, slow down over the summer as people get vaccinated. But as a coach at the high school level, how has this affected, recruitment and things for LTU?
College level, but yeah, so like you said, this one's kind of tough for me to answer just because like you said, I kind of started the whole position in the middle of COVID, which that in itself is an interesting task to start a new position of any sort. So I really think people are missing face-to-face interaction in general. I can see conferences and meetings continue to be online, even our NACE, not we went to NACAD and that was online, and now they're asking if that potentially want to do that like that next year. So it'll be interesting to see how many people continue to also work from home and do different things like that. The internet made the interaction a lot easier. Of course, all of us knew that as multiplayer gamers that we could interact. So it's interesting to see it carry over into like the business world now. People are zooming instead of just conference calls. Um, but as we all said, we're definitely missing the excitement of being in the same space and just the camaraderie that happens. It's not the same as being online. Um, and I think it'll change the landscape a bit in a certain way, as like maybe competitions we won't be as amped to drive places because fiscally it kind of makes more sense, because it costs a lot of money to take a whole team to somewhere, and that might be hard to make, upper admin and certain people understand that you still need this. Fortunately, LTU is super supportive with esports, and I've already asked that question, and we will travel. But obviously, if COVID is still in the full swing, that's not really going to happen. So, but I am excited to see if that happens. I think the most amazing part about esports is that it can still continue, like unlike football and like lacrosse, cross country, not necessarily cross country, but they kind of have to stop as soon as somebody might have COVID and you have to halt all exercises. Where if one person does, they can still play from their home. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have to stop the entire tournament. And obviously, if they're really sick, we're going to. And I mean, traditional sports ending is just or being halted is really interesting. I mean, we're still waiting for the 2020 Summer Olympics here.
Yep. So, last but not least, Dylan at myself, how has COVID affected you guys over the last year? I know I saw last year, around March or April, you guys had, canceled all play because I mentioned it, but, people think, oh, people can play at home. Esports can be played from anywhere, but for students at the high school level, some of them don't have computers at home. Some of them rely on the technology at their university at their schools to play. So I know you guys have to whole play for your what you guys do over there, but since then and till now, what have you guys done to change around and combat COVID?
Yeah, definitely some forced growing opportunities here. Some unplanned learning opportunities. COVID has upended our in-person playoff model pretty severely. That's why we canceled. We were pretty close to our playoff time. We were in the works of like getting our arena set up. We were using the Lansing City Arena, which is like an indoor soccer arena to host the event. And once schools started getting shut down, and then they were shut down for the rest of the school year, because students were reliant on not only the equipment but also internet connectivity at the school. It just we couldn't move on because some teams couldn't participate who were leading, and some teams who were never won a game were saying we're still able to play. So it's just like the data was just all over the place. So we just rewrapped. If I could just touch back on some things that were mentioned, I believe it was Steven that said, like, when it comes to what does esports give these high school kids, it gives them a home, it gives them a platform to shine and stuff like that. And when they have a physical place like where he's sitting right now, you can see them come out of their shells. Like I've seen several karate kicks in the background and stuff like that. So it's an awesome thing for students to have a physical place to be. We have a lab at our school, but we've chosen to go remote because we've been up and down, and then on certain game days too, we're virtual because we're using a hybrid model. So we've just opted to go virtual at my school this year entirely, but some schools are participating 100% from the school because of that dependence on connectivity or equipment. We were able to adapt and kind of like re-visualize what we're going to do for a virtual season. We planned pretty long over the break, and we came up with a 100% virtual model. We called upon our member schools and our college allies to help set up a memorable playoff experience because our regular season play is remote. Because some of the students that are playing each other, they might be in Alpena and Three Rivers or something like that. So it's not going to happen that they're going to meet up at a school and play one afternoon and that's it. So really the thing that was most impacted was our playoffs, which was a huge success when we were able to have them in person. Northwood University hosted it. We occupied their entire facility. We had camp rooms where like the teams would hang out. We streamed the games into the rooms where the families and the students were hanging out, but we were pushing maximum capacity on that. So we knew we were kind of like overgrown our our shell there at the university, and we had to move on to a bigger place. So that's why we went to the Lansing City Arena. We're talking right now about once this thing is a go again and we're green lighted. I'm hoping that eventually we can move into like big in-person events again, as long as it's safe and people are vaccinated or whatever condition is met where it's not going to be a risk. We are shooting for large scale. We want to bring back the big in-person events. When you talk about like what the game developers bring around for playoffs, and they're selling out Madison Square Garden and Little Caesars Arena here in Michigan, we want to bring back that flair and that excitement. We're working to acquire like an arsenal of gaming computers for our playoff events. Most colleges don't have what our member schools are able to bring to the table as far as the equipment. Like do schools have 100 plus gaming PCs at the university level to be able to host that? In our state, not currently, but like some of our member schools have 75 PCs that they're willing to bring to our playoff event. So we're able to pull our resources together from this federation that we have, and we're able to bring together the equipment that we need, and we're able to swing the venues that we're looking for. We're in talks with like Big Ten schools about using their arenas to host playoffs in the future as soon as that opportunity becomes available again. And we'd like to host more recreational events as well, not so much just like intense playoff competition, but almost like a fair like kind of atmosphere, or carnival with like recreational gaming, vendors, college recruiters, cotton candy, food trucks, bounce houses, all that stuff. Like we want to make esports fun and community oriented and approachable and local. So we're thinking like we could rotate like these events around different regions of the state, and it can be kind of like an open house and also an informative experience and a fun experience for students and families to get to know what esports is and what the opportunities are, and just another way to interact again once life goes back to normal, or as normal as it possibly can be. So there's a lot of pent up demand for this kind of stuff, and once we're able to, my staff is ready to start providing these types of events experiences for families and students.
Yep. So a little bit of a last question, a little bit building off of this topic, quickly. Stephen, what do you see for the future of esports? You know, as a whole, within the community of Michigan, moving forward. Once we get back to a little bit of a normalcy that we saw early spring last year.
Yeah, I would say for Michigan in particular, it's super optimistic. I would say in the past 8 months, I haven't received as many messages over LinkedIn or email or phone that than I did before. Um, a whole lot of organizations that are trying to kind of make esports larger in Michigan. And I would say I know a lot of times when people think of esports, they think of New York, they think of California. But for 6 months or for 5 months, it's maybe 4 months. It's really cold, and there's not a lot to do in Michigan. So I know that we've definitely have the player base in Michigan, and that's one thing that's super important is if you've got the fans, then you can kind of create these events, and people will show up. And kind of like I said, I went out to New Jersey to watch the World Championships for Rocket League, and I never thought I'd see 30,000 people in the Prudential Center watching Rocket League. But then again, it happened. So I think if events like that could happen in Michigan, people would definitely come.
Yep, and I'm gonna pass this over to Eric. So, hopefully, like I said, that COVID starts to, slow down over the summer. How do you see GG leagues moving forward, um, towards the fall and, into the future in general?
Yeah, I think esports in general is going to come back stronger than ever, right? And it goes back to what I was talking about, where this has really sped up a lot of universities and cities in getting involved with esports, right? And Stephen and Dylan both mentioned that as well, where you're starting to see more of that recreational side pick up for esports, getting that we'll call it more casual community involved in these kinds of activities, right? And so I think as things get back to normal, that's where we're going to see a lot of growth in the esports industry. Specifically for GG leagues, right? We're excited to see the schools that are now going to be getting back into esports full swing and seeing all the growth in the number of schools that now have esports programs or esports clubs that their schools now support rather than actively fight against. And then for us on the more recreational side, right, working with cities, we're seeing more and more youth programs for esports popping up. And we think that's really where, you know, collegiate esports, high school esports have led the way there. And now, the rest of the more recreational gamers, younger gamers, are going to be following in their footsteps and starting to build out that pathway, so that you have the full infrastructure from, when you're a youth esports player all the way through, whatever level you want to eventually play at.
Yep, and then I'm gonna go over to Dylan. So, how do you see myself moving forward? Hopefully, once we get back to some normalcy.
Okay, we want to expand our member schools throughout the state. We definitely got some regional activity going on as far as, like, I think there's a Southwest Michigan esports. It's a little bit more local, and I think it might involve middle school as well. But like, we're looking to kind of get our member schools to pioneer the Michigan Middle School Esports Federation. If somebody wants to take on that task and carry that torch, like, God bless your soul. But our member schools, like some of them, they have middle school programs, which are feeder programs into their high school program. So it's self-serving, and also it helps the teams to become better team players, and they learn those traditional sports lessons that they're going to carry over into high school. So like, that's one way we'd like to expand. We'd like to continue to develop our interstate play as far as like having our champs play other state champs. We want to work with other groups to develop summer camps and training sessions, like colleges, to be able to host, like, if it's like player deck development, like their player profiles and stuff like that, or if it's actual game tutorial and like strategy stuff, or like a day in the life of what it's like to be a collegiate player. Like, that's another just like good one day camp kind of thing. So that's something beyond the game challenges, to create maybe like a virtual environment where we could host playoffs, and it's not just a server in Discord, but it's a virtual space where there's like, maybe somebody could create it in Minecraft, and there could be like different, hangouts where you could watch this game or you could watch that game. We want to increase our streaming and increase our shoutcasting. We're going to try to develop like how-tos and tutorials, maybe drop in seminars on how to do those kinds of things for our schools, just so they can elevate their profiles amongst their community members, so that way they can get the recognition for the things that they do, and build in community support, which people have mentioned is growing, because when you can't do this and you can't do that, it's kind of like, oh, well, esports is still going out, let's check this out. And then people are getting hooked on it. So we'd like to do that. Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many different like in-person events, but I kind of already mentioned that we really want to get back to doing that and do the kind of like just like open house types of things and community events. We'd like to go into some like, for example, at our playoffs last year in person, we had a blindfolded Smash tournament where one player was blindfolded and the other player was telling them what to do. That turned out to be an awesome event. So like silly stuff like that. We'd like to just continue to grow and be creative, to provide fun experiences, create those relationships amongst peers that are going to be long lasting, develop college recruitment in a sort of more organized way. So right now it's kind of just like, I don't want to say it's a wild west or anything like that, but there's really no model when it comes to college recruitment. And if we could get more clear avenues for that kind of thing, I'd like to work on that this year. Creating regional divisions. So we had mentioned like different levels of play, and also different regions. Okay, so as we get to be a bigger organization, we're not going to be able to create one big bracket for every school. And some schools have 4, 5, 6 teams in one game. So we're going to have to break that up regionally or by skill, as we grow. So like, there's a lot of things we need to think about, and these are all not bad problems to have.
Yeah, and then lastly, passing it over to Danielle, how do you see LTU moving forward? Like I said, hopefully once COVID slows down and everyone starts to get vaccinated, and we can start doing some more in-person things.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're just in the building stage. So I'm definitely trying to find recruits that come and they want to they fit at LTU. You just can't come pick a college based on skill right now. I understand you really want to play esports, but you still have to keep in mind, kind of like Dylan said, the odds of you going pro are pretty slim. You have to think of it your long game. What career are you going to choose? So if you fit with LTU and their curriculum, that's what I want. I want you to be here because you want to be here. And we're also trying to make our presence in general with esports and competitions with student life, because engaging all of the student body and not just, hey, you are on the esports team, it seems to be fun. Right now we have a Greek life tournament going on, and potentially we will, could do Mario Kart with beer goggles on to teach people why you don't drink and drive. It might be a silly approach, but it might stick. You never know. So hopefully, as we grow too, then we can move towards building an arena and bringing in students, high school students, to have different camps and things like Dylan is saying. I'm looking into having a camp, but ideally it would be a lot of high schoolers and things like that. But with COVID, it's just not going to happen this year. So lots of plans that I'm writing down for the next year, which I don't, want to give them all away, but that would be, and creating just a big giant network. I mean, I've reached out to I've met Steven before, and I've met some of the other high school coaches. We have not met yet, Dylan, but now we have. So
Yep. So that wraps up the topics that we had for today. Thanks again, guys, for coming out. A lot of fun to have you guys here. Very good conversations that we had. I want to go over to a few questions that were posed in Twitch chat, and then I can let anyone who wants to respond respond. But the first question is, who or what decides what games to compete in? I guess this could kind of be directed at the coaches.
yeah, I guess I can start by answering. The main thing is I'm trying to base what games I'm doing off of what the student body reaches out and asks for. The other side of that is I have to see what the other universities have in. I'm trying to create a network in Michigan where we're competing. Um, we have MySIF. We also have a couple different random coach or not coaches. I'm sorry, college associations. So we're kind of part of the Michigan Esports Conference, and we'll try to compete throughout that. So I'm looking to what the other universities, even in our WAC conference, which is the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference, which is what LTU's in, what they're competing in, and how we can the longevity of that. Um, the other thing is, you know, I am one person. I can't conquer every single title myself. So I'm trying to pick what the greatest number is, and then as we start to grow and I can bring on more different, assistant coaches and people who specialize in those specific titles, I can add more on.
Yep. So I'm going to direct the next question to Dylan. It's kind of two questions. I'm going to combine them. How can a school get funding for a computer lab or, different things that, students might need to participate, whether it's peripherals, computers, or other things of that nature?
Okay. Good question. Okay, every school has got different resources. So before COVID hit, we had gone a year of just kind of scraping by with what we had available at our school. So what our first year above ground was as an organization for our school, we had repurposed some robotics computers that had graphics cards in them. Okay. So we had success over 2 years of like showing growth and potential. And our school district said, we're going to give you $10,000 towards your program to help develop it by what equipment you need. And then COVID hit, and I dare not even ask for any extra money. So we kind of just missed the bus on that. And then since then we've been virtual now, so like we really haven't had to address the problem of equipment ourselves right now. But community members, players, parents, they do have resources. So like I have a friend who works for a major loan corporation in downtown Detroit. I'll just say that, and he's in charge of acquisition and like of products and also disposal of it. So they have all kinds of programs where they're selling discounted towers and equipment and things like that. There's like groups like REMSEC and there's groups like Gravity Gaming. There's so many different vendors out there that want to sell esports packaged equipment to schools. And schools can get those things like at a discount, or like schools can use the money for like Title IX money in order to justify their purchases for dual purpose computing that can work in a regular kind of like academic setting. Then after hours, boom, they're your esports computers too. It's really just about being creative with the equipment that you have and the resources that you have out there. We have some different ideas for like fundraising, which if you want to contact us at mycef.org on our website, we've got a contact us. It'll get you in our Discord, and then you can talk to the different schools around the state and see what they've done as far as how they've acquired their equipment. But e-cycling programs, fundraisers, within schools, there's all different types of ways that you can raise money. You can do it piece by piece. So one thing that's like simple and no effort is like at certain schools you have to wear like business casual. You can't wear jeans. So they'll have like teachers can wear jeans for $1, and teachers will all throw in $5 to wear jeans for the next 5 days. You have like 60 teachers in your district. I mean, that's quite a bit of money for all you doing is letting people wear different pants. So like there's a lot of different ways to raise money, and you can get creative. Movie nights, lock-ins, LAN parties. There's just 1,000 different ways to do it. It's just like you want to talk to somebody who's had the experience and they can coach you on what to expect. I just bought a giant inflatable movie screen for outdoors. And one fundraiser that I'm planning is like playing The Wizard. Do you guys remember The Wizard with what was it, Fred Savage or Ben Savage? Is like about a video game
Yeah.
contest in California. Yeah, okay, so like
Don't age
play
us.
play that movie or something like that. Do like a drive-in to raise money for your school, and to schools also have a special license to be able to play movies and charge admission. There's just a million different ways to do it. Also contact like corporate sponsors. So within the state, there's like I know that state or schools within our state that are close to like Dow Chemical or Dart or whatever, General Motors, Ford. Universities sometimes want to help to raise money or donate equipment that they're getting rid of or something like that. Computer building is a good way to get hands-on and also like develop real life skills for your students too. So like building it piece by piece is cheaper, and it'll give you that notch in your belt too. So I could go on and on about that one, but maybe for a later date, or if somebody else wants to chime in, I'll let you talk as we're 10 over.
Yep, I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping it up, and I'm gonna allow you guys to, plug in some of your social media. So, if anyone's interested in contacting you, I'm gonna start off with Eric. So, how can people, reach out to GG Leagues and learn more about your organization?
Yeah, the best way to learn more about GG Leagues and reach out to us is through our website, www.ggleagues.com. And once again, we're here to help empower cities and universities to set up and run their esports competitions. So if anyone's interested in chatting more about that, definitely reach out to us through there.
Yep. And then going over to Steven, how can people learn more about DCC?
Absolutely. So we've got a website set up right now. It's just dccesports.com. We also are pretty active on social media. So mainly it's Twitter. Again, it's just at DCC Esports. If you type any Catholic Central Esports into Google, it'll probably come up pretty well.
Yep. And then, Danielle, how can people, hear more about LTU, reach us, or find out more information about our varsity esports program?
Yeah. So you can actually head over to the LTU athletics page and head to esports. That's a little bit more complicated. You can go to Twitter and we're Lawrence Tech ES. And then also, if you want to reach out to me, just email esports@ltu.edu is the easiest way. You can also email me, but the easier one, esports.
Yep, and lastly, Dylan, how can people hear more about my stuff, or you said like reach out to you?
At mycef.org, there's a contact us, connect with us button that gives you our Twitter, Facebook, our Discord, our YouTube, all of that stuff is a one-stop shop. If you hit contact us and you email us, it'll also give you a Google form where you can kind of answer some questions and help us to answer your question more directly. And that gets sent to our Discord. A bot picks it up and we get notified, and like we're on call to answer that stuff. So reach out to us and we'll connect you with a network of peers throughout the state and we can get you cooking on your program.
Yep. So thanks again to all of you for coming out for this panel. Very excited. I'm probably going to listen back to this a few times because there was definitely some great information. But with that, we're going to wrap it up. But stay tuned for everyone who's on the stream. We're going to have a quick 1v1 tournament with some of the LT students as well as some other people within the community. And then we're going to head to the GG Leagues finals, which LTU was fortunate enough to make it into. And that's going to be casted. That's going to be at 8 p.m. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back.